Well, a warm hello to everyone. I hope that you're all doing well. My name is Vinny Robertson at the Gsma, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Shamit, Bhat, Director of Blockchain for the Gsma, and some special guests. We have Adeep Maharaj from MTM Global Connect, and we're also joined by Nadir Patel from Omantel. Now, we're going to spend some time talking about the eBusiness network, what it is and what it does, and then get some feedback from the field itself. So without further ado, Shamit, talk us through what's key to know on the network itself, what it is that makes the wholesale roaming settlement more efficient by using the eBusiness network, and talk to us about the tools that we've built to support that and leverage the network.
Thank you, Vinny. At this point, let's talk a bit about what the GSMA eBusiness network is and what our vision for roaming is. So let's start with the eBusiness network. Now, the eBusiness network is the blockchain network of the telecom industry. And our vision is twofold. Firstly, with the use of blockchain technology, we would like to globally connect operators, partners, and the larger ecosystem players and help improve the interoperator processes and their efficiencies. And secondly, once this has been done, this lays the groundwork for unlocking new monetization opportunities. Now, in terms of the overall blockchain revenue potential, it's estimated that by 2024, telcos worldwide are going to generate somewhere around $1.8 billion in revenue. Now, there are lots of different areas where this revenue is going to come from, but largely the use cases which are most talked about are wholesale settlement use cases, blockchain as a service use cases, payments, identity, fraud, and supply chain. Now, all of this value is being brought in by the operators themselves. And of course, there are a lot of vendors who will play a part in generating this value. Now, let's coming back to the GSMA eBusiness network. Now, the GSMA eBusiness network is the blockchain network of the telecom industry, and it is a network which is being built on the Hyperledger fabric. Now, in order to visualize what the network looks like, think about a router in your house which connects to various different devices. And on each device, you run various different applications. Now, as this is a decentralized network, there is no physical router, but the GSMA eBusiness network works in a similar fashion. Every entity which is on the network has a node of their own, and through the node, they run various different applications. And to begin with the first set of applications, we are starting the network with are the wholesale roaming, clearing, and settlement applications. Now, our vision for roaming is to enable a direct peer-to-peer model. And by doing so, and by use of blockchain technology, what we'll be able to achieve is a frictionless wholesale roaming settlement, which will lead to much lesser disputes and much faster payments and a healthier revenue assurance. Now, opportunities do exist in the end-to-end life cycle. So right from contract management to data clearing to financial settlement and all the way to payments. Now, at this point, it's really important to understand how the process in the legacy world works and how it's going to transform once you have the use of blockchain technology. Now, today, two operators come together and they sign a discounting agreement with each other. And after that, there's this information with regards to the agreement, which is passed downstream to various different stakeholders. Now, this involves a lot of back and forth between multiple entities, and everything is kind of checked twice in operations, once on the MNOA side and once on the MNOB sides, often by use of agents, whether it's the data clearing agents or the financial clearing agents. And many times when you're a connected operator, you might be doing this on your own. Now, in the future, or the world we are trying to create right now with the use of blockchain technology, the partners still come together in order to sign those roaming agreements, but the roaming agreements are signed using the blockchain technology, using smart contracts. Now, by use of smart contracts, we gain much higher visibility for the two entities on the two sides, and it also helps reduce any issues which you could get because of multiple counting of the same set of data, and because of that, the double counting problem we face, wherein there are multiple sources of truth created. Now, with the use of smart contracts, we ensure that there's a single source of truth and both the sides have equal visibility of every data and every transaction which happens between the two sides. Now, this also implies that there is obviously an opportunity for the operators to transition to this new way of working, but at the same time, there's also an opportunity for the current ecosystem, which comprises of many vendors, to transform into blockchain as a service provider. Now, we've got two categories of services. The first two are more related to platform access, and the next two are more roaming specific. Now, as far as platform access is concerned, we have the GSMA eBusiness network itself, which you can think of as a marketplace where two operators can come together and do business with each other. Now, we simply issue a digital certificate to each entity who joins the network. And once you've got the digital certificate, which recognizes you as someone who's part of the network, the next logical step is to create a node of your own. Now, we do provide a managed node service wherein we can give you a fully compatible node, which you can use from day one, and we help you with various different hosting facilities, software stacks, connectivity tools, and the standard and proprietary API access. Now, in terms of the roaming services, once you've got your node up and running, we provide the GSMA Negotiator and the GSMA Settlement Service. GSMA Negotiator, as the name indicates, helps operators negotiate roaming deals with their roaming partners. It has an inherent ability to forecast, analyze, and budget for various different roaming scenarios. Once you've done that, we provide you a facility by which, through a collaborative tool, you can negotiate your roaming agreement with your roaming partner. And finally, you can digitally sign these roaming agreements with your roaming partner through blockchain-based cryptographic signatures. Now, once this is done, this establishes a single source of truth in terms of each and every charging model you've agreed with your roaming partner in your roaming deal. As a step two, we provide you a settlement service, which you can use during your operations for all kinds of settlement needs, whether it's for TAP, BCE, or discounting settlement process. And this is where we actually implement the smart contracts you had agreed during the negotiation process. So in the nutshell, these are the four services which are up and live and running today, which you can utilize for your roaming operations. And at this point, I'll hand over the control back to Vinny to take us through the rest of the session.
Okay, thank you, Shamit. Really, really good to get a good understanding there of the network. Now, I wanted to take the opportunity to hear the thoughts and the feedback from the field, if you like. As I mentioned before, both the teams at MTN and Omantel have been exploring blockchain technology and its innovative applications and implementations, and both have been working closely with the GSMA to onboard onto the eBusiness network. So let's take the opportunity to ask Nadir and Adeep some questions. So Adeep, Nadir, thank you so much for joining us. I think it would be a great place to start with you. And for us, certainly for me, from our conversations, I absolutely see MTN Global Connect as at the forefront of blockchain in Africa. What do you see as the specific challenges the industry has and how blockchain has presented solutions to them, both for you at MTN, but more wider within the industry itself?
Thank you, Vinny. And I think it's a very important question, coming out and how the industry is moving forward. And I think more importantly, what Global Connect, MTN Global Connect, is actually taking the blockchain paradigm forward. So I think as a precursor and trying to dovetail into the challenges, I just want to highlight that Deloitte's 2021 Global Blockchain Survey showed a very contrasting analysis compared to the 2017 survey, right? So the 2021 survey covered at least 10 countries worldwide, including Europe, APAC, Hong Kong, China, and South Africa. And what was interesting from that survey itself, it showed that 78%, more than actually 78% of the leaders, all right, understood that blockchain technology is a very strategic priority, present times as well as future, underpinning that if we do not use it, right, it could lead to competitive disadvantage. And I think that's the crux of the whole situation, a competitive disadvantage, embracing the new technology as opposed to legacy technology. And if you compare that to the 2017 survey, it only showed that the leaders were considering using the blockchain technology. So you see the tide has shifted within that 4 years. We're already in 2022, halfway through the year. So there is much movement, all right? And coming back to your question on challenges, right? It is important for the MNOs to not only accept and recognize that the current status quo within the wholesale roaming environment is changing, but we need to go forward with and embrace it, right? And once that part is understood, the forward way trajectory becomes more clearer. And getting back to your question of the challenges, right? And I'm sure Nadir and a lot of the other MNOs can attest to this, right? The current architecture itself, all right, it is not fully automated or maybe semi-automated, right? This leads to more time-consuming and labor-intensive processes, and that is something that is the bane of a lot of MNOs, right? What we notice as well, while the ecosystem is gradually increasing, the cost is already rising to a level where that it becomes unsustainable. And when I talk about unsustainability, I'm talking about the wholesale roaming model itself, because now we are working with contracting margins, all right? The present medium, looking at how our settlements are working, we're using orthodox tap, all right? And that is not now conducive to the blockchain and even BCE. Shamit mentioned BCE earlier on. So even to that extent, right? So we need to follow that way forward, all right? When I'm talking about the business model itself, we understand that it takes at least 45 to 60 days, commercially, but it doesn't actually work that way, right? Because with that, the MNOs now are looking at disputing, there's disparities at invoicing level. So these are the things that is not conducive right now, right? And when I talk about business model, maybe let me expand slightly on that itself. So we are trying to bring the blockchain, GSMA, MNOs, a lot of industry players. So blockchain is actually seen, more as a transition to embrace the new models, unique models within the roaming environment itself, right? So that's what we need to understand. We need to embrace or look at a multidisciplinary approach. How do we redefine our business? Not only by creating and delivering resources, but how we consume the network resources itself. So that's what we need to understand, because with the network resources, you're looking at your data, you're looking at all the services that is requirement. So this is how we view the challenges, understanding what we want and where we want to go to. Shamit, thanks.
No, that's great, Adeep. Thank you for that. Really, really insightful. And I think I agree with a lot of those points, especially in regards to the gaining of traction and certainly some of the challenges that operators are facing now in terms of, the length of the settlement process. And we've had many of these conversations with many operators. So it's great that we can bring such solutions. Now, Nadir, over to you. And we had very early engagement, actually, with yourself and the team at Omantel from the launch of the network. So my question to you is, what was it about the GSMA eBusiness network that Omantel saw as a good fit for them, and also for the reasoning for joining of the network?
Sure. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Shamit, for having me here. Well, as you have rightly said, we have been engaged for quite some time regarding the implementation or on the exploring the blockchain. And I can say that a lot of factors are involved in why we decided to go with the GSMA eBusiness suite. One of them, of course, is the long-term relationship that we have with GSMA. We are a member of the GSMA since the time we have been in operations. We see that GSMA is a carrier-neutral body. So there is a lot of benefits when you work with a carrier-neutral body than somebody who's affiliated to a certain carrier, because these are roaming tab files you're discussing about, these are MZs you're discussing about, and normally people are not too comfortable sharing this kind of information with other partners. Obviously, we found that the team was very trustworthy and helpful. All the interactions that we've had right from day one, when you started with the commercial roaming team queries, then we moved on to the mediation guys, to the corporate security teams, revenue assurances. You had the whole team of Omantel at one time sitting with you. And we saw that you were able to manage a lot of their queries and questions and the doubts and issues that they had, because this is in Omantel now we're seeing this as a change. So, you know, when a change happens, it is not that easy. A lot of people are happy doing what they're doing. A lot of people are very secured and comfortable in where they are. But we are moving towards this. There is no stopping, or there is no doubt that we have to sooner or later, as roaming as roaming partners, we have to evolve and move towards BCE. We have to evolve and move towards the blockchain, because these two factors will help us in what, as Omantel, we are working in terms of agility and efficiency. Adeep has mentioned very aptly quite a few points that there are disputes, there are issues in settlements, money doesn't pass through in a timely manner. We take maybe a year sometimes to reconcile our discount IoTs, even after the year is completed, by the way. So it takes, you know, almost 6 to 12 months to actually agree on numbers and then initiate the settlements. So these are a few factors that were there. The availability of your team members also, of the GSMA support members, Vinny, yourself, Shamit was always available whenever we wanted to have a discussion. So these were a few points that, you know, were very much in favor, and which was quite impressive for us as Omantel to go ahead and think on this.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Nadir. Thank you so much. And you know, I certainly echo the conversations we're having with many other partners as we start to get that engagement now and bring partners on board. There's you know, Adeep has mentioned it, you've mentioned it. The challenges seem to remain fairly consistent across the operators. So yeah, it's good to be able to bring the network to life and have the teams such as yourselves working with us to make that happen. Now, question for Shamit. Now, Shamit, you and I will both know this because we've both had lots of conversations, you know, on the ease and use and convenience, right, for MNOs that may have to run 2 duplicate systems from now on. Okay, so if you're utilizing a blockchain-based solution, but then you have partners that aren't on a blockchain-based solution, how's that going to work? How is the system that we have going to work for partners that are utilizing blockchain and for partners that aren't utilizing blockchain?
Well, let me delve a bit more into that entire point of having to manage 2 different systems. Now, when we've spoken to different operators, one of the key concerns is, okay, how do I manage these 2 processes? I do like what I see, but then, you know, there's a lot of my roaming partners who would not be there on day one. So how do I manage this transition? And it's, again, as Nadir said, it's more about change management as well. Now, we still get 2 kinds of feedbacks. One is there are sets of operators who believe that there is inherent automation there in the blockchain-based implementation, that they are actually not managing 2 different processes. One process is almost fully automated, and the other process runs the same way. So for the operators or roaming partners who are in the new process, the overheads are not similar. The second feedback we get is that there is still concerns on even having to manage those 2 different processes with 2 different teams. So how do you do that? Now, on the first one, it's pretty straightforward because this will be a set of operators who believe that they are you know, internally placed and positioned to fully automate everything, which is great because then they can run the set of services we described and they can wait for the rest of their roaming partners to make a transition. But for the second set of operators who still feel that, okay, they might have to run 2 different processes, what we've designed is what we call as the Compatibility Service, which is giving you the ability to use the same system both for your legacy and also for your future blockchain-based implementation. So think of it as a simple switch on and switch off feature wherein when you are working with a roaming partner who's ready for blockchain, you can just switch on the blockchain aspects of the system and you can, go ahead and start running the system with them. And for the other sets who are still making that transition, you can just switch off those blockchain-based features, but still benefit from a lot of automation, which we've brought in with use of various different technologies. For instance, we use a lot of machine learning and AI in our negotiator functionality for helping with budgeting simulation. So you can still benefit from a lot of those stuff, but you can wait for your roaming partner to make that transition. And once they've made the transition, then hopefully in a few years' time, all of your roaming partners would be based on blockchain. And at this point, I must also say that we do see this as a temporary requirement. So the compatibility service hopefully will only be needed for a few years. And after that, once everyone has made the transition, then you would not need that anymore.
So great, thank you, Shamit. So we have a great network. We have a great set of tools to help leverage the speed of the network, and we have the negotiator and set up applications that can help streamline these roaming efficiencies. However, Adeep, as always, clearly the proof of anything is in the results that it shows. So what does success look like to you when you're evaluating a blockchain-based approach versus the existing approach or the legacy system that you've always, and many operators have always worked with?
Well, thank you, Vinny. I think success is a big criteria, especially how the network is evolving, especially what GSMA wants to do and take this thing forward. And success can mean, many things, many streams that come from it, from the finance department, the CFOs, CMOs, your actual working colleagues, what they want to do and how we want to go forward. But I think it's critical to understand what is it actually we want to achieve with this disruptive technology. Now, you mentioned disruptive technology at the very outset, right? And yes, this is a whole new disruptive technology aligning with the fourth industrial revolution, right? So as a business strategy, what we need to understand is in how we position ourselves. Blockchain as a service is also an option that we can consider. But to even get to that level, we need to understand much more deep dive, all right, more granular, and how the blockchain can help with regards to the wholesale roaming settlements, right? So once we grasp that situation, right, and MNO has already a full view of their expenses, their revenue, their cost. You're looking at operational capex as well, right? And to measure their success should not be very daunting at all, right? Because they already have the figures, all right? It's now just measuring it against something else, right? So if you look at different streams within success criteria, how does an MNO look at this thing, right? I would say that firstly, you need to look at your business transformation, because that it is a vital core within the ecosystem itself. And when I talk about business transformation, and something Nadir already just mentioned a short while ago, talk about agility. So that, looking at your operating model from where we are right now, it's more a very hierarchical structure. It's very isolated. We want to move to a place where we are agile, AI enhanced, platform that already shows the trajectory of how technology is moving and how we are evolving as a industry. Not only that, another typical example is talent. All right. So, and we talk about talent as well. We need to close the skill gaps. All right. So what we need to do, we need to make it more elastic, and upskill our players, upskill our employees to a more digital workforce. All right. A talent on demand models as such. So if we're looking at that aspect, the business side, this is very important. Secondly, as well, yes, Shamit mentioned about quick settlement times, faster turnaround. So these are like the key deliverables, your key performance indicators as such. So how do we do cost savings? We're reducing the operational costs, right? So we need to deliver what is today by having less middlemen. So what is our middlemen talk about? The whole idea of blockchain itself is to try to move away from using the clearinghouse per se. All right, not to say we want to remove it, but that's the idea built on that. Reducing your settlement time, right? Data now becomes more instantly available or visible, right? So that reduces your process, all right? And then the delays, all right? I mean, Nadir said 6 to 12 months after the fact that we need to do settlements. So this now reduces your settlement time, right? Transparency is also very important because that equates to your reduction in disputes. So what happens here is we're using our smart contracts now, where now that kind of takes away your middleman and executes your roaming agreements very instantaneously. All right, real-time payment as well. So these are the key deliverables that we need to measure against what the blockchain is focusing on doing and how we do that in there. All right, and I think for me personally, what I value is thirdly, right? What value add is this going to bring to us as an industry? All right, towards the whole environment, the ecosystem, because ultimately the shareholders are looking for your investment returns, and our stakeholders are actually looking for your return on capital employed. All right, how does this work? All right, so we need to be more engaged. We need to reduce the time to market, spend less time on doing our commercial sign-offs and more on your service rollout. That's what we actually want to do, improve our financials. All right, now we engage. So we want to see a clear return on investment. All right, able to see your cash flow movements as well as reducing operational expenses. Another important one is to be enabled. All right, now when we talk about being enabled, we need to make sure that the reference architecture that GSMA is using, of course, is DLT. So that must be in sync with what architecture and MNO has itself. So where now we show the scalability. Shamit, you mentioned interoperability earlier on. So this now, of course, meets your industry scopes and more energized. MNOs need to be more energized. The ability now to integrate not only what we have now, but the new commercial agreements leading towards the 5G, the IoT, and even future technologies. So that's what we need to establish and understand going forward. The greater automation of what we are doing right now in settlements and semi-automatic to a more seamless transition going forward. Thanks, Shamit.
No, thank you. And I want to use that point. So Nadir, just on that, because I think raised some really good points, and there's a clear opportunity, for the streamlining of wholesale and roaming processes. We know that now, but for you, just to follow on from that, what does a future roadmap include for Omantel that add additional value as the network gains momentum and provide those opportunities outside of roaming?
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you that, this drive for implementation of blockchain and especially on the roaming is coming straight from the top. Our leadership, our CEO believes that we should be exploring this technology further. We should be looking at how we can implement not only on the roaming, but also beyond roaming. So we are looking at right now approaching more partners. We are talking to partners directly and exploring with them what are their thoughts, what are their plans in terms of the adoption on the BC and the blockchain. Yeah. We are trying to work out with the key partners where we have a huge amount of data roaming or roaming traffic exchange to see if we can get them on board, because that really helps us to test the system. Because when I have huge amount of volumes exchanged between me and for example with MTN group, then it really makes and shows how valuable or how efficient and how good the system is if it can manage such a big partner of mine. So we are talking to partners individually. I believe you guys are also taking this lead forward, and we are trying to get the buy-ins. We're trying to understand what stage they are at. It's a bit of the same situation that we had on the NRTRD HUR story migration, when people were not moving. Not everybody was moving to HURs. We're still to NRTRD, and people are still using HURs, but ultimately it happened. So we are quite positive that this will take more traction. We are dealing here in the region, in the Middle East region. We are trying to talk to a lot of partners and figure out how things work out. Internally also, it has created a very good interest in the company. So we have our people from HR now who are looking into this. They're saying that can we also implement blockchain in HR systems, for example, from the time you onboard a staff and there's a single source of truth and the data gets updated everywhere, from their access to the IT systems, from their updates in the payroll, their leave balances, their approvals and all those things. We are discussing this with our finance teams also. Within Omantel, we have an ICT section. They are also quite interested in this. And of course, their motivation is that if we are able to get this blockchain system moving within Omantel with roaming as a startup, then they could also look at exploring it on other business related to the banking system that is there in Oman. There is also the application in terms of the messaging. For example, I think in India they have already implemented a blockchain solution for for control on the spamming and the illegal SMSs and all those what do you call them, nuisances that they are facing, and it has been quite successful. So these are certain areas where we are also looking at exploring in terms of not only what are we going to do today in terms of the roaming settlement, but beyond that also.
No, thank you, Nadir. That's really good. I want to pick up ever so quickly one thing you mentioned in terms of reaching out and bringing other partners onto the network. Conversations that you've had and conversations that I've had and Shamit's had. It would be remiss of me not to mention at this point any of you there today in Bangkok or streaming online. If you're attending WAS in South Africa in September, both Shamit and myself will be there. So do feel free to reach out to us to set up a meeting. We could talk more about the business network itself. So just one quickly to mention there as we talk about reaching out to various partners. Shamit, back to you then. How do operators start to immediately benefit from the network that's built and leverage the tools that are available? Well, we have what we call the Accelerator program. Now, what that means is that we are giving full 3 months of complimentary access to all of the 4 services that Shamit mentioned earlier. So access to the business network itself, GSMA node, and of course the negotiator and settlement apps to test the efficiencies versus an operator's existing process. Now, there is a very simple and quick onboarding element for the networks that's provided by myself, Shamit, and the GSMA team. So we'll do all of the heavy lifting so that your teams don't have to, in order to be able to join the network and start benefiting, testing the system itself. So all the comprehensive technical support and training is providing. And Nadir mentioned something earlier, I think that's really, really relevant as well, in that we will work to onboard any of your recommended partners where required. So if you have a preferred partner you'd like to test with or expand your scope and reach, then we'll do the work to help bring those partners on board so that everyone can start benefiting from the 3-month trial accelerator program. Now, of course, we've talked about the products itself, we've introduced the network, but a full demonstration of the product, the tools, and a full breakdown of the no obligation trial period is available for you to take a look at, for Shamit and I to run you through. And should you wish to go live at any point, of course, the option is there to do so. So we're working hard to bring the tools and bring the support for anyone that wishes to join the network, go live, or test the network itself to do so via the Accelerator program. So do reach out to Shamit and myself off the back of today, off the back of this session, and we'll take you through everything that you need to know. We mentioned we're at WAS as well in September, so happy to have conversations whilst we're there should any of you be in attendance. So I want to finish with a huge thank you to all 3 of you for your insights and your thoughts today. It really makes a big difference to hear the words of those that are living and breathing the industry day to day. So Adeep, Nadir, Shamit, thank you so much. And again, I'll finish to say by those, for those in the live stream today and those in attendance, Shamit's and my details will be made available to you, and we're happy to conduct full demonstrations, provide further details of you joining the network. So do contact us so we can secure your slot. Many thanks and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.